Hello, brothers and sisters. Raven here. Today, we are going to go look at a new video on Homestead Heritage's YouTube channel that may seem really innocent at first glance. And I want to go into it because there's more to this than you may think, and it is way worse than you may think. As I said, at first, this can seem nice, this can seem good, but there are many problems in this. And I want to go into this, not just to show the issues, but also to show why they did this. Here we go.
The Bible has a fascinating story in Genesis. It describes Jacob, the patriarch, falling in love with Laban's daughter, Rachel. Rachel is the younger daughter, and her older sister, Leah, is upset about not getting married herself. Their father, Laban, covertly devises a plan for Jacob to marry both daughters. Yet,
hold on. False. There's nothing about the older daughter being jealous. If you look at the story, what really is going on is this idea of he needs to marry his older daughter first. It's their father's own idea that brings that in. So this isn't completely true. Already we're seeing a little bit of inconsistency here and bad assumptions being made. But let's continue.
In Jacob's mind, he's only marrying Rachel. On his wedding night, however, he discovers that he has married Leah instead of Rachel. This deception is only possible because Leah is wearing a veil concealing her identity. We tend to mistake identities when a veil is involved.
I'm going to get back to this, but remember what he's saying there, because this is significant.
Until Jesus Christ, people didn't see God for who he truly was. They perceived him as an angry master, a view as different from his true nature as Leah was from Rachel, because they saw God through a veil of fear, suspicion, condemnation, and distance. The holy place of God's presence, it was always protected by this thick veil, and it separated mankind from the glory of God. But what happened at the cross? Instantly, something stupendous occurred. We are told that the veil of the temple that separated the glory of God from the people was torn from top to bottom. And there...
True and false. That's not really what was being separated. We'll go into that a little bit more, but note right there, that itself is a little off.
There we see not a God of wrath or vengeance or anger or violence. We see the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ. Brothers and sisters.
Are you saying there is no wrath of God anymore? It doesn't follow with the way they've taught in a lot of their conferences.
The veil is torn, and it reveals a powerful truth. God is not distant. God is not vengeful. God is not angry, but he is intimately present, overwhelmingly loving, and longing to know us, and for us to trust him in this relationship. The Bible has a...
Now, let's get into the start of the real issues with this. First of all, let me say, terrible analogy. Possibly one of the worst I've ever seen. Because it is the opposite kind of situation. In the case of Jacob, what is behind the veil is a lie. What's behind the veil is the fraud. The veil is there to make it look real when it's not. According to what he's saying, the veil that he's using it as an analogy of is actually a case where the real thing is behind the veil, and what everybody assumes is behind there is false. So it's the opposite. Bad analogy. Very bad analogy. 2. Note Jacob's story. There's one side of this he doesn't discuss at all. And that's the fact of the way Jacob had to serve for several years. He had to serve before he could marry Rachel. But then when he found out it wasn't her, he had to serve even more. This is so funny to me because, in a way, it's a great analogy, but not of the gospel, not of Jesus, not what happened there, but what Homestead heritage is. You have to go through a dedication. You have to go through this time of learning and their teachings, their theology. You have to go read their documents, sign the agreement, go through the baptism before you finally get to pull back the veil. And then so many people, once they get past that veil, whether quickly or eventually, a lot of them realize they've been given a fraud. They thought they were coming to know Jesus. They thought they were coming to know God. No, instead, they were coming to know Homestead heritage. The other side of this, that instead of funny, I find just sad, just terrible, disturbing, despicable, is the same goes for the other side of the story, the one with the veil being torn in the temple. That right there would make the idea of a veil in a marriage, a true marriage, a good example. Because it is his death, tearing the veil, that makes it so that we truly get to know God, truly get to start having that relationship. But it's not until then. But there's the thing. He's not talking about finally getting to enter the Holy of Holies, which is what that veil was blocking. It's not about finally getting to be with God. It's about getting to see him. And in Homestead, that's the way it works. You're seeing it by them. It's one of the things we've seen in their teaching, is that to them, you don't just get the direct connection, you get it through them, through the body. You're still seeing from a distance, which is the way he's talking about it here. This is not at all what it's trying to pretend to be. Everything about this video, I will say flat out, is an act. This is a performance. Everything about the way he talks, the appearance, his motions, emotions, everything is an act. They are the ones putting up a veil, because they're trying to hide that what they're giving you is a false Christ. They want you to be stuck in that marriage, in that relationship, before they pull back the veil. Not only that, that's when they put another veil in place. And that's one over you. That veil is what they want so badly. You to be rid of yourself. You to see yourself as Christ, as part of this body, so that your identity is completely gone. Not born again, just gone. And in that way, this discussion, that's what he's not going to talk about. He's not going to talk about the false identities. He's not going to talk about how, in the story of Jacob, what was behind the veil was not real. That's what this whole thing avoids. And it avoids that idea of finally being able to enter the Holy of Holies, because it's trying to avoid the true Christ. It's trying to avoid who Jesus really was and what he really did, which is not to let us see God, but to let us have a relationship with him. They're doing the same as Rachel's father did to Jacob. They're making us work for them, for this supposed marriage, but then they're marrying us to somebody they weren't offering somebody else. This is a wonderful view of what Homestead Heritage truly is if you stop and look at it. But if you don't take that time to pull back the veil, this is more of them teaching that false gospel where Jesus is just the footnote, that false bride. I'll see you guys next time. God bless.